Hi, everyone. Good evening. Carl Steinbeck here. Finally, we got the verdict. Karen Reed, not guilty of everything except that OUI charge. And that's something that was highly predictable. And the only thing she got out of it was probation. So it's something she'll be able to serve. A lot of times, if you pay your fees and fines to the court, they'll even dismiss your probation early. So she has a 1 year probation. That's standard in Massachusetts. Thankfully, the prosecutor didn't ask for more than the standard because if she didn't get found guilty of more serious charges, they should not hold that against her because she basically was cleared of that, of the manslaughter and the worst charge of second degree murder, as well as the third count, which had to do with the leaving the scene of an accident. So I'm totally good with the OUI charge. It's something that I believe was horse trading for a couple that really wanted to convict her of something more serious. But the majority of the jurors obviously were in favor of not guilty across the board. So I think that's how they wound up settling this case. And as it turns out, I mean, I think that we saw that there was a lot of drinking going on with the group that Karen was hanging around with, and they were all either cops or affiliated with cops and felt like they basically had immunity and protection where they could drive around drunk. And so Karen, I think, is going to never have this issue of drinking and driving at all. My view of it is if you're drinking and driving, you have some impairment, and so you should never risk it. And so just imagine how much weight is off Karen's shoulders right now. She can finally relax and not have this massive crushing weight on her. And so I'm not going to play any video from what happened today. You guys saw that they had initially a verdict. They announced a verdict. They knocked on the door for the bailiff or court supervising officer, security officer that was standing fast at the outside the jury deliberation room, and they said they had a verdict. And then they handed it to the officer, and then they knocked it, like, I guess right after that, and said, no, we changed our mind, we don't have a verdict. But then a little while later they did wind up having a verdict. And I didn't get to see it live. Leslie and I didn't get to see it live. She had an important business call and I didn't want to miss it without her, so we both watched on replay later. And we're just very thankful. We're thankful for a lot of things that this thing could have turned out really bad. And this process was really what was so disturbing. If somebody's going to get convicted and there's evidence out there to convict them, and people aren't messing with the defendant's constitutional rights, then that's something you can live with better. But when this was a nonstop hiding the truth, day in, day out, hour after hour, objections ad nauseum, it was just really a disgusting thing to see. And the way that people were treated in that courtroom, from the defense counsel to Karen to defense witnesses, it's really an abomination. It's the worst thing I've ever seen, and I hope it's never seen again. But if you're in Massachusetts, you can probably expect that if you're on the wrong side of people with political power. So I thought I'm going to do some Q&A tonight. And what I could do also is basically cover it through a lessons learned. And I don't know if I'll ever cover another Massachusetts case or not, but this one is very much scary to think how that process works up there. But thankfully, the jury is the ones that had the last say. That's the way our Constitution was set up, where the members of the public could keep overreach from the government in check. And here, when you have rampant corruption, a corrupt justice system that basically is pushing injustice to extreme degree, then the jury is the one that is the only last measure, the line in the sand, or wall, I should say, wall of resistance to stop that from happening. So, and as you recall, that's something that even Jackson alluded to in his closing. And so the jury was empowered to do this. They had the courage to do the right thing. So I do thank the jury for doing justice to Karen Reed and her family. And they actually, by doing justice to Karen Reed and her family, they were actually doing justice to John O'Keefe's family as well. And so I think that um, when we stop to think about how much gaslighting there was by the government in this case, that the O'Keefe's had to take their word for it. And I think as this trial went on, they saw that you can't trust the government what they tell you. And if they really think Karen got a fair trial, my gosh, I don't understand how anybody can think Karen got a fair trial. I don't care if you say she's guilty as all get out. And but everybody should want even the guilty to get a fair trial. So when people don't even want to see Karen get a fair trial, then that's really a sad sight to see. So let's see here. Yeah, so this may be the last time we talk about Karen Reed. So anyway, just thanks to all you guys that were supporting Karen Reed. And so whether it was giving money to Karen Reed in her cause, saying prayers for Karen Reed and her family, praying for justice, that God would answer prayers. So definitely we had, I feel like we had God doing some work in this case to make sure the evildoers were held accountable, or at least not able to get away with their evil ways. And so I do have some lessons learned here. I also want to thank my amazing, wonderful wife for all the great things of insight and time she took to discuss things with me, notes that were generated from our talks. Also, my brother John, he's done phenomenal work as well, supporting this effort. Also, with all of his different thumbnails, all the thumbnails are from my brother, as well as all the different feeds he's made on anything from X to what is it, TikTok, and also the thumbnails on YouTube. Leo, he's here too, and he didn't like me getting upset of seeing what was going on, so he's here to hang out now. And so let me go through. I think you need to get down here, buddy. Let me go through some of the AAR things, and if you guys have comments, as I'm saying these, AAR is what we call in the military after action report, and they are what we do anytime there's some kind of military exercise where we do battle simulations. We try to do a lessons learned, and so we say what's something we can improve upon or sustains, or something that we should take corrective action on. So there's these things here that I came up with. Just I think there's like 10 or 11 of them that I think are truths that can be takeaways. That is I think sort of like long standing truths and points that sort of stand the test of time. And so the first one is what I've said is that the jury is the great equalizer of rampant corruption and abuses of the government. And so when I'm facing injustice from a prosecutor, they don't want to do the right thing, or the judge isn't doing the right thing, I've always said that, you know what? I have no doubts in my mind a jury will do the right thing. You get them the right information, and you have you have all the compelling facts on your side. Justice would uh, have it be that you're on the side of justice. Then I've always had trust in juries that way. So I know that you guys can talk about other examples or whatever, but maybe the attorney's messed up, or maybe something happened that was sort of kept the jury's hands tied from seeing the light on something. But think about this case. Despite so much truth being hidden, that ultimately enough truth cracked through the window so that the jury could see the light on what was really going on. And so it's something that I have confidence in, because if I'm dealing with the prosecutor and they're out of control or judge out of control, I have no doubts that jury will be able to do the right thing, and I don't have to fear a jury. And I think a lot of attorneys are absolutely terrified of a jury, and they don't feel comfortable talking in front of them. It's just really, it's really amazing. So just me talking with confidence about juries and being willing to go to trial, and that can also be an intimidating thing for a lot of attorneys, even if they're in a job where they're supposed to try cases. They can be terrified and want to settle everything. So anyway, so I use that as a strength and a leverage thing, because I say, you know what, if you're not going to be fair to me here, I know a jury is going to be very fair. And so that can be an intimidating factor for those that don't want to get in front of a jury, and also they know it's hard working. Um, you got to work your tail off to do good in front of a jury trial. So you can't just go in there and wing it and expect to get good results, even if you got a good case. So it takes a lot of work and preparation, late nights, weekends. So anyway, so that's the first thing. Next, some other takeaway was that something I've talked about here is like there's no such thing as a helpful pretrial media interview. I think that's what really made the jury deliberates as long as they did, because there was a couple holdouts, or at least maybe one holdout, to try to get Karen on this DUI charge, which was somewhat sketchy because they didn't have a lot of the details that you needed. The judge allowed in that stupid blood alcohol test that had no reliability whatsoever. And there's no way she'd be 2 to 3 times the legal limit if she had not touched another glass of alcohol around 12 o'clock midnight. So that I think was hurtful to her, with the way everything that Hank used throughout the trial in his case in chief, as well as in his closing. He used a number of statements from her, and some of those were not looking the best, putting Karen in the best light. Some of the poor word usage she had and topics she raised, I think, were not helpful. So I can tell you, as a criminal defense attorney, that, and you guys have probably heard it as well, no criminal defense attorney thinks it's ever a good idea to have your client talk to the media. So in this case, pretrial publicity helped generate good interest, and had basically a groundswell of support, not only just there in the Massachusetts area, but also across the country and even across the world. So, um, so I do think in that sense, social media, though, is a good thing, because it helped expose the mass corruption that was going on there, and then Justice Karen, and help her raise a lot of funds. So social medias have a different impact on so many cases now, especially because they have televised court cases. So social media is doing the stuff that the mainstream media is not. Mainstream media, as you can tell, and I've just seen a few comments in the chat here, and I also saw it in the coverage of like Dateline 2020 type shows on the Markell case, um, that Professor Dan Markell, that was murdered in Florida by the Adelsons of South Florida. He was that case was also not shed in a fair light towards the victim and the victim's family. So I don't trust the main media coverage. I like those kind of shows, can be fun to watch, but if you really know what's going on down in the finite details of the case, you'll see how much spin and this lack of really focus and a lack of understanding of what are the real driving forces of the cases are. So anyway, next one is that I can say that what I've said also on this case many times. I said, you know what? Being a bully, being a tyrant is not going to win you a jury trial. That's just something that I'm just not going to believe and accept, that any jury will tolerate the kind of behavior we saw on display here in this court. And so I think this also validates that point as well. You have to have dignity and respect for all witnesses. You have to allow a fair trial. I think the jurors picked up on that Karen was not getting a fair trial, that the prosecution was trying to roadblock him at every chance they got, and the judge was doing the same thing. So bullying is definitely a no-go. Yeah, you're River Birch. You say you're so disappointed, Vinny. I am too. I mean, I didn't really know much about Court TV. I think I've been on their channel about, I don't know, close to 10 times or so, and so what the kind of stuff I've seen them portray Karen Reed as, it was just despicable. I wouldn't even call it journalism. It's more like an agenda. So I don't know. I thought Vinny was being more fair than like, who was it? Julie Grant. I thought what Julie Grant was doing was really, really disappointing, extremely disappointing. So another lesson learned is something I've been telling, preaching this quite a bit, is like the defense counsel, if you see the prosecutors running roughshod over you, blocking everything, you can't let the judge just run you over as well if she's always siding with the prosecutor as well. You got to push back, do sidebar after sidebar after sidebar. And if you compare the first trial to this trial, the defense did it a whole lot more, asking sidebars, pushing back, asking for reconsideration. So they were much more aggressive this time around. And being aggressive does pay off. If you're just going to sit there and just go, well, I guess we'll just have to take the judge's ruling. She's a judge, but you can respect the position of the judge. But if the judge is giving you bad rulings, you got to push back, and you got to go up there and do sidebars. You got to lay foundation more for what you're trying to get across. And although these ridiculous rules don't allow the attorneys to make objections and state the basis for it, and the sidebars, they can talk more about the basis for the objection. So I think that there's this whole process of not having the jury understand what the basic objections are. It just leads to laziness, and you never develop a skill of the rules of evidence as an advocate in the courtroom, because you can just say objection every time you know the truth's going to come out and it's going to hurt your case. And we saw that from Lally, and we saw that again from Brennan. So so bottom line is, you better stand up with your judge that's running roughshod over your case. Make the judge respect you. She may not like you as attorneys, but she needs to respect you and your advocacy and your tenacity to speak truth. And you better have your case law lined up and be ready to argue off a case law. Next is keep in mind, I've said this also, I think special prosecutors are unconstitutional because you're basically hiring somebody to go after one person. And normally a prosecutor's office, they have a high volume of cases and they're not going after anybody in particular. But you hire a special prosecutor to go after one person, and you're just asking for them to run it all the way through, that there's no true sense of filters, which, like, hey, do I need to really try this case? What if you really think a special prosecutor is hired for a term and paid a decent amount of money is going to sit there and say, well, I don't think I want to try this. I don't think you have enough facts there to get to trial. No, if you can milk this thing for 300,000 in less than a year, that can incentivize a lot of people. So I just think the whole special prosecution thing and the money factor and the time, when you combine money and time, the longer you drag this out, the longer you fight it. And if you get a win, you can, what are you going to get out of this? Just hourly fee? I think for somebody like Brennan, they probably were going to promote him to something. They still may promote him to some kind of judgeship, or maybe you could see Morrissey stepping down, and right when the time to announce, I've seen this happen before, right before the deadline for announcing who's going to run for this open seat for the judge, then he's going to step down, and then the governor will appoint somebody like Brennan to replace him, and then Brennan's going to be running as an incumbent or something like that. So something crazy like that you could see happening as well. So there's a lot of political dividends that can be earned by being a special prosecutor, and so it's just not what you see in terms of like a paycheck is given, but there's a lot of special, I think, backdoor deals that springboard that person to better, greater things. All right, next I want to say is that lesson learned point is that we've seen in this trial how the highest character and caliber of people can be vilified. And this is a classic of the good versus evil. So the great and greatest of the good people that we have on this earth can be raked over the coals and vilified and made out to be some kind of dirtball slime bags. And we saw that with prime example is Dr. Russell. Here she is. She knows she's like the world's best expert at dog bites, and she reaches out to a prosecutor, the district attorney in Los Angeles, to say, "Hey, I'd like to get in contact with the defense because I think I could help them on their case because these are dog bites. They're not marks from a tail light. She's best qualified for anything involving accidents, forensic pathology, and dog bites combined. There's nobody better in the world." So to think that she was vilified and the way she was attacked on cross examination, like she's just looking to make some money, get some fame. I mean, it was actually laughable, and that's how low that the prosecution went to try to impeach her. There's no impeaching somebody like that. She's like super brilliant, salt of the earth, greatest, highest character type of doctor, and a true someone that's looking out for humanity and justice. And so somebody like her, you can't touch on cross examination. To make her out to be some kind of a person that's just out to make a name for herself and make some money. She doesn't need any money. She doesn't need any fame. You can just tell she's the kind of person that just wants to go about her own life. And so that was one person that was vilified. Also, look at the ARCA witnesses, the way they were vilified, and this whole issue about deleting text messages and made out to be a villain because you're deleting text messages in the normal course of your business. And because you went afterward the first trial, you went and hung out with the defense counsel at a luncheon, sat at a table and had a ham sandwich, and were photographed later when they were getting ready to leave. Yeah, so just think about it. So that's the kind of really nuts. It's absolutely nuts to think you're going to impeach a guy, these professional people, on stuff like that. And so my concern also was if you have good people that are going to be vilified like that, and you know you're going to be made out by the prosecution to be a some kind of grifter and unethical person, and think about it. A lot of times, these are people are that's all they do for a living. If you're ARCA, they testify after having done independent research. If it's a litigation matter that needs to go to trial, they need to back it up in court what they're saying. So they're not going to go to court and make themselves look like fools. So you had world-class testimony, world-class tests being done, and so that's the great goodness of ARCA, and yet they were uh, talked down to like they're some shysters. So anyway, I think, as I said, the jury hopefully gets it, and they reject that kind of treatment of them. Yes, beach bum, and the twisting of a lot of facts. Imagine all the twisting of facts they had to endure. It's just absolutely despicable to see. So anyway, I don't want to go down that too much. I just want to sort of forget about that because it brings back a lot of bad memories. But your heart goes out to people like that, and I think the jury had a heart as well. So that's another thing I can say is that you better have your heart in the right spot if you're going to court and you expect to win. Because if your heart's not in the right spot and you're not projecting truth and strength and doing the right thing in court in front of the jurors, then don't expect good outcomes on your case. So the defense was doing they're fighting like gladiators to try to get the truth in there, and every step of the way they were blocked, and they just kept clawing and scratching. I really respect them for never giving up, and a lot of attorneys could not have done that. They would have just given up. They would have had a bad attitude. I mean, look at the hatred the judge had for Alan Jackson, and you could never tell by the way he acted. He was always respectful and kind and professional in the way he talked to the judge, the other opposing counsel, as well as any witness. And so it's doing the right thing will pay more in the end than doing the wrong thing. So next thing I wanted to say was that if you really want to look at experts that are going to do the ultimate testing and speak truth to what's going on, as opposed to just making stuff up and just basically having bias. What's that? You have preconceived bias that's going to infect your test. So look at what we had in this massive difference of testing between ARCA and Aperture. Aperture didn't do any significant testing at all. Their testing was really for the vehicle strike. It's like they just wanted to have some kind of a dummy, like they call it kindergarten test, to say, oh, this is how it happened. And then they backtracked it in the argument and said, oh, this is not, we weren't trying to demonstrate what happened. Even though we went to the ultimate extreme by even dressing like John O'Keefe. So, and then you compare it to ARCA, they weren't trying to dress up like and do any kind of salesmanship. They're just acting as a true professionals they are for doing significant, serious work for the federal government and trying to do things like save people's lives, soldiers' lives. So, anyway, just can't say enough about the good experts versus the experts um, that don't care about doing things right to the client and doing things right to the jury, where they can even get away with having a bogus resume and not be honest about the fact they haven't been working towards a completion. 17 years, so you're still working on your degree. Yet you're going to say you're still working on your degree when you haven't taken a course in 6 years. So that's the difference between an expert. Expert doesn't have to worry about padding their CV. So that's the difference. ARCA, they're untouchable. So if you have world class experts, what's opposing counsel going to do? Make up some garbage trash cross examination about the fact that, oh, hey, you had a ham sandwich at lunch with them afterwards, didn't you? That changed your testimony. And the way they try to say about Dr. Wolf, his testimony was clouded because of the fact that he got reports on what was going on during the trial one. So anyway, it's obviously nothing about the first trial mattered to the second trial. They were well prepared and they were really able to bolster their testing when they saw the lack of any testing by Aperture, more like conclusions to support the government's theory. All right, the next something I've been saying also is that I think for any case, physics trumps the data. So if you got what they keep calling science, Brennan was calling the data science. Like, okay, it's information technology, it's data collection, data preserving, stuff like that. It's not meant to be forensically used to prove things in such finite, concrete detail that you can basically put somebody away for life based on this kind of computer stuff, versus physics, like what ARCA was presenting. Those are real physics things that were just common sense, a lot of it, but it also resonates because it explains the why things would look the way they did. So they really walked us through the process of how you come to the conclusion that this was not a vehicle strike. Okay. And I can guarantee you, if they would have said it was a vehicle strike, the prosecution would have said, oh, we love you. You're awesome. Yeah, you're the best. We're going to call you. We're going to call you instead of Trooper Paul in the first trial. And in this trial here, you think they would choose ARCA over Welcher? Absolutely. They would have chosen ARCA over Aperture any day. So anyway, it just goes to show you all that smoke and mirror stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So next we have I think there's a real ongoing concern a lot of us had, which is banning speaking objections actually just spoils the record, allows the jury to be confused about what's going on, and you can basically just be a hack and have nothing but dislike of the truth coming out and just keep on objecting. Just be a motor mouth is objection, and you got a judge is gonna sustain basically 95% of those. So you don't even have to know the law. You don't have to know the rules of evidence to do that. So now, like I say, on the sidebar, you'd have to justify some of it. But anyway, it's just like what I find is a lot of attorneys don't understand the rules of evidence, and even a lot of judges don't even understand the rules of evidence. So if you're going into a system like that, better have some case law to back you up to explain it to them, because it just be like over their heads. They don't get it. So all right, next we have I want to say that on that same topic of objections, this nonstop high volume objecting is truth blocking, and it's a losing strategy. So if you're going to sit there and just nonstop object to all the efforts of the defense to bring in constitutionally required evidence, and you're getting away with this, it's going to be a losing strategy in the end. You're going to lose a jury because it looks like you're just nothing but an obstructionist. You're trying to hide the ball from them, and you're also going to lose on the appeals. And I've been saying this, that they don't care. It's so obvious to me that they could care less about carrying a constitutional trial. What they want to do is just win at this stage, and if they win, they can always say she got off on a technicality. So the other thing I thought was interesting is that when you start to think about the different all the overwhelming injustice on here, it's just like, to me, I was disappointed because I didn't hear enough attorneys calling out the injustices going on, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't really see what's going on, but mostly from what I hear from other people, that it's like you cannot really call it out for what it is, because it's like, oh, we don't want to go there, we don't want to go there. But you know what? If attorneys are afraid to speak the truth, then what's to stop evil from just running rampant over society? So I think attorneys need to step up more and speak out truth and call it what it is, and not be worried about offending somebody because you speak the truth about something is wrong. The Constitution is being violated. So I'll just say, anybody that's looking to go to law school and or is an attorney, wants to get into trying cases, criminal cases as a prosecutor, you need to make sure you really understand what it means to give somebody a fair trial if they're the defendant. And so this is a good example of how not to conduct a trial. I cannot think of a better case to show how you should not try a case. So anyway, that's something that just irks me, and I just I just think that's sort of what you see, though. Most people don't want to stand up to bullies and tyrants, even if they're going to send somebody that's being framed away for life. And then one of the other things I wanted to say is, I've been saying this ever since I started this YouTube channel with my brother, is that um yeah, I haven't even seen the thumbnail yet. John put it up, so I haven't even seen the thumbnail yet. So thanks, John. um the general public has no idea how political the criminal justice system is in America. No matter where you go, it is so political much of the time, or most of the time. Some of the times it's not. Some of the times I've gone with to court on different cases, and the prosecutors are straight up legitimate guys. They're not out to railroad anybody. They're not about keeping stats of how many people they put away for 10 plus years prison, for example. And it's not a game to them. It's about justice to them. So, but there's a large extent of it that actually does does not know. The public does not know how extremely political this whole process is. A lot of it's about pounding money out of defendants, and so this is really sad to see. I've also seen it, like, even in, it's not even just criminal case. It also can be family law cases and stuff like that. I saw a divorce case. It was really sort of like a joke, and I was really disappointed to see that here in Texas. Lack of lack of true justice in a lot of ways, and yeah, you can see there's a lot of, and it explains when you have people that don't care about justice, they don't care about truth. It's all everything's a game to them. It's all win at all costs kind of mentality. Then guess what? Yeah, the innocent people can go to prison or jail. So imagine what we saw, how close Karen came to going to prison here, right? For life. Think about it and look at all the efforts were made to get her there and all the blocking that was done, all the ridiculous rulings by the court, the judge even not even answering a simple question to the jury because we know that that's likely to lead to a mistrial. And it's the exact same question that or along those lines that the first jury had because his jury verdict form wasn't accurate enough on what their roles and duties were and also their instructions. So anyway, it's those are my main takeaways, lessons learned, and so a lot of these are things that I've already learned that, so I'm just sharing it with y'all. And so you can see these same themes resonating throughout any future trials you go through, and I just don't think we're going to see anything like this, where you have this massive amount of overwhelming efforts by so many people to try to put somebody in prison. Yeah, what's this saying about Massachusetts now and the corruption there? That's we got this other case with Senator Birchmore, who was from Canton, and Canton police covered up her murder through complete incompetence. Yeah, I never lived there either. So if you guys have any questions after this, go ahead. If you can put a red emoji, like with a question mark. And I think the thing is, this is not a case where this whole issue with justice for John O'Keefe ends. I mean, it still needs to be pushed, and hopefully the feds will step in and do something about this type of system they have there in Norfolk County. I believe that they're still actively working investigations. I think that eventually things are going to unravel on this case, and we'll find out some years from now that things are starting to unravel. All right, PJ, you said you sent me a question. Okay, I guess you're saying you. Does that mean you emailed it to me? Let me check my email here. No, I don't see it. I don't see it. I guess. Yeah, is there a hashtag boycott Massachusetts? Miriam Komuji, you're right. This is once a lifetime case. Imagine knowing the facts and choosing side with Commonwealth because you don't like Karen's effect or personality or how blunt she can be. Sad. Yeah, I mean there's things that people can not like about Karen or personality and stuff, but like I say, it's about the process of due process that she was denied over and over again. Georgia Boat Girl, do I think the O'Keefe family will win in the civil suit against Karen? Who knows if they'll even still pursue that? If they can't even get a criminal conviction on her, I can't imagine the attorneys that are trying that case are going to want to pursue this, knowing how bad these people got exposed in court. I mean, all these civil lawyers have to do is look at how the case fell apart. So maybe we'll see that it's dismissed here in the next month. That's what I would think would happen if they're smart about it. County BC, do I think there'll be an investigation further into what happened to John O'Keefe? I think it's been ongoing with the feds. I don't have any insights, but I would just think that they are. Thanks, Coach Mo. Yeah, I hope the O'Keefes understand they've been lied to. So maybe something that's going to happen, and they get in trouble, and as a way to get out of trouble, they'll flip on somebody, some of the real culprits for this. So I'm just not going to give up hope for that. Yeah, Soul Souffle. Sandra Birchmore lived in Kent when she was murdered. The judge denied the motion for Karen to use facts from that case in this case. Yeah, I mean, there's so much truth blocking. It'd be good impeachment information to show that they're not doing investigations by the book. Yeah, can you imagine drinking and driving up there in Massachusetts? If you drink any alcohol and drive in Massachusetts, especially Norfolk County, my gosh. If you know about this case, yeah, Kale, corruption runs deep there, but thankfully we have jurors who see the truth. Eventually, Sam, somebody will be prosecuted. I just am not going to give up on that. Let's see. Did anybody hear the judge thank the jury? You guys, I heard you guys saying she came up and talked to some. Did she ever publicly say that before she dismissed them? Kristen Davis, had Karen not had the dollars for Fantastic Lawyers, she would be in prison maybe for the rest of her life. That's our justice system. Yeah, I mean, think about it. How many public defenders can hire ARCA? They're not going to get that kind of money approved by the judge. How many just regular defendants could afford that if they weren't wealthy, like the Reeds? Thanks, guys. You know, I do want to say thanks for your support. I mentioned, what was it last night, that I get some nasty mail once in a while, but I didn't shout out to all you guys being so upstanding and wonderful, and your wonderful comments for us behind this channel. So I appreciate you guys and your gratitude for also having my wife and brother and their wonderful help to get this off the ground. Okay, doctor, here you're saying you're doing a post-verdict study. It's about the case to work with the prosecution, the defense team, and justice system. I think it touches on many issues discussed here. All right, let's see. It looks like you sent me something on that. I'm not sure if I can post that on the channel, though. I'll take a look at it, though, but thank you, doctor. I mean, this case is really off the radar from the way most cases are handled. Nothing about this case is really very at all the norm from what I've seen. Yeah, how do these people get elected in Massachusetts? Do people just don't care? Are you kidding me saying you're curious about the gag order being over now and what will the attorneys say with the judge and Brennan when interviewed? I don't know if they're gonna say too much. I think they don't wanna, like, focus on it. I think they wanna focus on the good stuff and leave it at that. Yeah, Luminous Red Velvet, yeah, think about all those that do not have access to that kind of justice. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If unless you have a lot of money, can afford folks like Arca, they charge 50,000. That's probably like a discount because they already did. Think about it. They already did a lot of the work beforehand for the feds, the FBI. Oh, hey, one of the obvious takeaways. Why don't? How about not drinking and driving at all? Think about it. Think about how that night would have been different if nobody was drinking and driving. But we're at a. I don't know. I think it's. I think there should be a law saying you can't drink and drive at all because you're going to be impaired to some extent, and a lot of people don't know how much is too much. And all that. Why don't you say no alcohol within, like they do with pilots, right? It's a high risk maneuver. You can kill a lot of people really fast if you're flying an airplane and you're drunk or you're impaired to any extent. So why don't we make the same for cars? But businesses that sell liquor and serve liquor, they need to make money, and so we have laws that allow you to go close to a line, but there will be accidents and people dying by having this allowance. People get confident. That's one of the things that when they're drinking, they feel confident. Oh, hey, I'm good to drive, right? So anyway, I've been in the wrong that way too before. So I used to drink and drive a lot when I was young, even underage. But you know what? I was young, dumb, and stupid. I don't drink anymore. Berkshire saying you might quit speeding after this trial. Get caught up in the corrupt, especially if you're in Massachusetts, especially if you're in more so there in Norfolk. So I guess the judge is going to rotate over to the civil court side and not do any more criminal cases. That's There's less damage a judge can do in a criminal setting. People's lives and livelihood of staying in and out of prison is Such a vital thing to have a fair judge. PJ, I think she'll be able to get her vehicle today or tomorrow. I can't imagine why they would hold it. There's no reason to hold it. They don't need it for any other case. But you know what? The way they did all that tests on the vehicle and stuff like that, I don't know if it's even going to be something they can she can operate the vehicle when they mess with all that data recorders and stuff like that. I don't know if that ruins it, or maybe she'll have to spend a lot of money to get it fixed. Sting cool. What are the legal differences in owie versus dewey? It's just the terminology. It all means the same thing. There was some, when was it, back in the like late 80s, early 90s, the, the federal Congress basically mandated in order to get federal funding for highways and all that kind of stuff, the states would have to adopt and lower the threshold for drunk driving to 0.08%. Before it was like 1.0 or higher, something higher. So all the states now are uniform in that 0.08%, like we saw here. And so it's just a terminology. So the other version is, like in Pennsylvania or what is it? Massachusetts, what do they call it? OUI. So anyway, let's see here. Okay, Adriana, you're asking also about this not guilty verdict affecting a wrongful death case against Karen. Well, it's not binding. It's a separate body. The burden of proof on this criminal case was beyond a reasonable doubt. So in a civil case, it's by preponderance of the evidence. That's more like a 51-49 percent standard. So you just have to go a little bit over the 50% to get a win there. Same kind of thing you saw any of you that followed the O.J. Simpson case from the early 90s. That's what happened there. They lost at the criminal level, and then a wrongful death was pursued by the victim's family, and they won that. But I just don't see, I don't see even with this lower threshold of proof how they're going to get anything out of this. Maybe there'll be some kind of settlement or something. I don't know, by the insurance companies, but I just don't see. I think Karen's going to fight it all the way. AJ, you're asking why aren't huge companies like Apple and Toyota required to testify if their data is presented in court? These third-party companies like Aperture have no business testifying to Toyota data. Well, first of all, Apple's like the most secretive type outfit. They don't want anything being exposed. They're resist any law enforcement, even on a murder case. They don't want to help with law enforcement and uncover any kind of data. Toyota, all the electronics and stuff like that for what they testified to in this court, those are all done by, they'll have positive down trace subcontractors that make all that stuff, and a lot of them are overseas and whatnot. So trying to find those people to testify and come here, they're just not going to volunteer to get involved in that. You don't have any subpoena power for stuff like that. So that's why I think that they're forced to rely on other people that don't have any affiliation with those companies. Lou G, should Karen be worried about a retaliation through a bogus probation violation? I don't think she's going to have to worry about that. I did see that there was like one court security officer that was smiling and sort of cheering on Karen and the team when they're on the steps of the courthouse. So that was nice to see. Mary Lisa Morrison had been fantastic for the crowd to yell upon acquittal. You're all set after biased, corrupt judge. Yeah, they can still proceed with the lawsuit, the wrongful death lawsuit. Yeah, Georgia Boot Girl, I did see that about some kind of statements from the Alberts and McCabe's on the verdicts, but Higgins' name wasn't there. So, well, that's what we'd been hearing, that he doesn't have anything to do with the Alberts anymore. Yeah, Jack, for you to be the OUI guilty was pretty much by your own interview, and I do believe that, and that's why we saw the we saw the jury asking, "Hey, are those interviews that we saw Brennan post up, or is that evidence?" 'Cause I think that was what the people that were trying to hold out for not guilty across the board were saying. No, that's not really evidence. That was just an interview. We didn't see the complete thing, and so I think that was the wrestling going on between those that were trying to get her not guilty on everything, and those that were pushing for the OUI charge to be conviction on that. Stevie Hall, if someone else ever charged, could this case be used in their defense as far as reasonable doubt? Well, I think that if they're charged, it depends if it's a state or federal system. If it's a state system, basically the state has to, they could be, this could be brought out to say they originally were pursuing Kieran Reed as the culprit. So it could be brought out in some way. How they actually do that remains to be seen, but it's possible. Solner Foster, will the cyber conversation be released to public? Those are all done by court reporters. So unless somebody pays for the transcripts to be made and for just the OUI conviction, they're not going to transcribe this whole thing. That would take a lot of time and effort. Thousands and thousands of pages would have to be transcribed. So I don't think we'll ever get those unless somebody just asks for the notes then or was willing to pay for it. I don't know who's been willing to pay for it. Having transcription is really expensive. I forget how much it is, but let's say it's $10 a page. I mean, who wants to pay $10 a page just to see what happened at Sidebar in a case where she never got convicted? Yeah, Corey, what do I think of the statement by my Caves and the Alberts? I think it was a bad taste. Why do they need to raise anything? I mean, that sort of reminds me of the Adelson saying, "Hey, we didn't have anything to do with this case. We're not involved in the murder of Dan Markell. Now we already got one Adelson convicted, former Dr. Charlie Adelson. He's convicted doing life without parole, and now his mom, 75-year-old Donna Adelson, her trial set for August. She's also going to be looking at life without parole, and then they got other Adelsons to go after of South Florida. Sure, I love it when you get riled up. Yeah, I don't always love it because I don't like getting riled up because it's I don't know. It's just not, it's a way to get my blood pressure up, I guess, and I don't always like what might come out of my mouth, but it's really hard to hold it back sometimes. Thanks, Sam. That was nice of you. Thanks for your help. Thanks for all you guys with your great questions during this trial. Herbie, you're saying, did I see all the interview about a few months back with Proctor's sister? Even she admitted to the interview that the investigation showed her brother framed Karen. I heard something about that, but I've not seen that. Mad 962. What I think the number one question of the public will be have for the jury. Who was voting for and against Karen Reed on this ultimate one that made you come down to who was a holdout on this DUI? I think there's maybe only one person. And I've been saying I think whoever's holding out on this for the OUI or whatever you want to call it, the drunk driving charge, is probably somebody that's been affected by an alcoholic in the family or a drunk driver, something like that in the family, because they really don't want to give that up. And I think to have this jury deliberate multiple days over just this OUI, I think that leads me to believe there's somebody there that had a bad experience with something involving alcohol, and that was a person that wasn't willing to budge and said, "I am not going to vote acquittal across the board," and they stuck their heels in. So, Lee Dundee, can Karen sue the Commonwealth, or is that not possible as she was found not guilty? Suing the government that has immunity for something like that's really hard. So unless it would have to be more egregious planning of evidence, being exonerated after being convicted, spending time in prison when DNA cleared you or something like that. Yeah, so I heard it soon also the police department and Cindy B. That's just not, I don't see that happening. Right, son. Watching the clerk of court read charges knowing he has a DUI conviction tells me no. I heard something about that. He like hit some elderly lady or something. Georgia boat girl, AJ said it was like the most profound case he has ever had. Yeah, I mean, it's just bizarre. Little Miss Red, what are your thoughts about the false verdict? I think there was still this guy that was holding out on a DUI. I think maybe they had a verdict where he agreed to go not guilty across the board. And then he thought about it and they're going to walk out of there. And he goes, you know what? I'm not going to let you guys push me in the corners. We're going to flip it. And I'm not budging. So maybe they had, okay, all right. We're just going to we'll capitulate. We'll agree on the OUI. All right. So maybe something like that happened. So who knows? Maybe we'll find out here with the jurors talk, and hopefully more jurors will come forward and talk. I think you'll see more jurors talk since it's not a hung jury. And Daisy June, yeah, the governor very silent on all this judicial misconduct, corruption. Morrissey needs to go. It's just part of politics. Yeah, so 2020 trying to put Proctor in a good light, a sympathetic light. Yeah. I don't watch that stuff. I don't. Michael Breen, you're saying the judge did thank them for their service. I just didn't see that part of it, so I don't know. PJ, you're saying the judge looked over after reading the verdict over to the Hank. I didn't see that. Ordinary you're saying 2020 is airing a Proctor interview tonight. I have no idea. Why is Proctor going on in an interview like that? That's not worth watching. All right, thanks, Queen, for answering that also. Yep, can't get up on justice coming around. I don't think Karen will either. Yeah, I saw stuff on Higgins. Higgins like cooperating, giving a proffer and stuff like that. Where are people getting that information? I don't buy it. So, I guess there's something going on with Donna Adelson today. Georgia, the lead prosecutor was in court arguing for a while. I didn't follow any of that. Thanks, James Hare. I think all this groundswell support definitely helps. And I think even having all those folks outside the courthouse, that had to help make the jurors feel good about their verdict. And when those cheers were announced, wow, that was like, wasn't that great to see? Sort of gave you chills up your spine. Stevie Howell, you said you would have lost your entire mind without this channel and chat last month. Yeah, we sort of kept everybody sane together. It was that crazy. Yeah, just imagine Karen's lawyers were awesome. Look at the pro bono hours, show they're good, decent people. Are people going to still give contributions to them? Or are they going to try to do some kind of movie deal or something like that to try to get paid? I don't know how that's going to work, but yeah, this second go around, they were apparently we're not getting paid, just things like expenses, hotel fees, and maybe some flights for Jackson to go visit his wife. Or all right, so let's go see something here. Yeah, David Ridgway, thank you. You're glad I don't cuss like some of these others that use God's name in vain. Yeah, I just cussing and swearing and perverse language is just such a turnoff, and it's really negative talk. It really brings you down if you really stop to think about it. It's like you listen to some stuff, it's like, oh my gosh, you just want to like turn the channel and take a shower afterwards. It's just that nasty. So anyway, thanks for you guys for being professional and respectful. And no matter all the abuse we saw of Karen, I mean, I think, I think we all had to like watch our tongues and not say something that was going to cross the line, because there's definitely a lot of stuff that was just over the top, wicked and evil. Daisy June, yeah, the reading of the verdict was discombobulated. Perhaps the jury foreman was nervous, but he replied with sure instead of yes in one segment. Yep, Nick Smith. Thanks to also Leslie and John. Appreciate that. I certainly couldn't do all this by myself. JC, why did Brennan do the right thing? Give her the standard for OUIs. What was his thinking behind that? Well, if he lost all the other stuff, then that's not aggravation. So it was just a simple OUI, and so I think it would look like a fool if you try to like embellish it and make some kind of argument. So I agree. I think he did the right thing and didn't try to like act like a sore loser and try to say no, we don't. Let's not do sentencing now. Let's go ahead and argue for 2.5 years or whatever. Yeah, it was a fantastic day. Justice prevailed in the face of corruption. And what kind of corruption was it? Wow. Yeah, Jeanette Loudon, it's not going to be this judge over the Sandra Birchmore case because it's in federal court. The ham sandwich will live on forever. Oh my gosh, that was thinking back of that ham sandwich cross examination. God, what was that, like 15, 20 minutes on who he had lunch with and what he was eating? and all that? I've never, I can't recall anything on a case, especially being televised to the world, that you would get in that kind of a bizarre attempts to impeach a world class expert. Oh, hey, by the way, so after the last, what was it, the day that Dr. Rentschler testified, and I asked you guys to, if you say happy birthday messages on here, I'm going to go ahead and send it to him. So I did send it to him. I just haven't heard anything back yet. Maybe now that the verdict's over, he'll say something about it. But thanks also for supporting him and his family like that. Yeah, that's true. That's a good thing. Yeah, the jury will finally find out about the FBI involved. I think they have to know, even if they don't admit it, and they're in front of the jury, in front of each other, because there's signs. There's a lot of signs there. I think they would have seen, but maybe if they don't trust the sign or whatever. But yeah, now they can go back and maybe they'll watch different coverage of it on YouTube and whatnot. Rich Auntie, you loved hearing the disappointment in Judge's voice when she had the verdict. Yeah. Herbie went bananas. You're saying you agree with the legal limits that each individual is affected differently. Yeah, that's true. With allowing you to have any alcohol in your system, and then it's a sliding scale, and different people can. One person can act totally sober, at least in terms of handling getting behind the wheel with, let's say, 10 beers in an hour, and another person having one beer because they're not used to drinking. They could be like falling down drunk. Evelyn Santos, that's a good reason. Also, yeah, nowadays we have Uber, Lyft, no excuse to drive. Yeah, they surely had that in Canton. They could have used. I'm just telling you, so many years doing criminal law, either as a prosecutor's defense counsel. So probably the most common theme or why people get in trouble is alcohol. So I'm not just talking about DUIs. I'm talking about violent crimes and all that. It's usually the common denominator is alcohol. Phoebe Beach, you're saying flight attendants also zero tolerance. I never thought about that for flight attendants. Do they have something like that as well? You can't drink anything within 8 hours of a flight. You said I had this pegged all along. Well, that's what comes with experience and having instincts. I think my instincts are pretty good in terms of because what I've seen and it's just sort of like common sense is really. I don't think I have any special insights. I think it's just ability to understand the common sense that the jury will apply. And so if you have common sense and you show the injustice going on, I think what happens also is like, what's that saying go? If you tell a lie r- and repeat it enough, eventually most people will believe you. I mean, that's what I was worried about with this jury somewhat because I couldn't see the jury. But from my experience working with the juries, I would say that nobody's going to be tricked and fooled and have this kind of a clown show by the prosecution, a vicious clown show, and hiding the ball, hiding the truth. How can you win a case like that? It just doesn't happen. There's no way. I mean, so like I say, it's just common sense. And so, why would you take a case where you basically have to throw out common sense? You take that to trial. I mean, once you had ARCA lined up, it's like, come on, really? You don't need an expert to understand the dog bites either. Yeah, lobster roll. I think she will sell the Lexus. She wants to nothing to do that. Yeah, the dashboard's ripped out. Plus, it's been sitting there for so long, for multiple years, so it's probably dropped half its value or more. It's like what about $80,000 Lexus? She'd probably be lucky to get 35 out of it, or 25 or something. Okay, Lee Dunn D, you're saying you agree with me about court defeat some of the guests and hosts. I guess they have to play both sides. Yeah, but when they have somebody on there to say Karen Reed is a psychopath and stuff like that, that's 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 not like respectable court journalism. Ted, yeah, I think Karen would get her license back already. So any driving suspension for DUI, like a suspension, like first offense, to be like 6 months. All that's run its course. So yeah, she could start driving right away. Salty sweet tea, is it normal to allow evidence that no chain of custody? Is I think that's what you're trying to say, or is it altered so much like a Sally port? I just have never seen like this kind of evidence coming in like that before. I think a lot of prosecutors would just say, you know what, I'm not taking a case like this. You guys messed up this every which way. I'm not going to back you up doing sloppy work like that. Outcast, you're saying from Massachusetts, we just had a hit and run homicide in my town. The person turned themselves in a week later and their name has not been released. Must have been somebody with political ties. Yeah, Mary Lisa Morrison. You're saying Higgins put his house up for sale on the Cape? Don't know about that. I've heard something about that. I heard also that the judge put her house up for sale. Don't know if that's accurate. Yes, Dr. Latina. Nurturing too. Would you consider coaching me as a witness? Opposing counsel is a bully, and I need to learn to remain calm. Unless it's in Texas, I shouldn't shouldn't be doing that to help you. But then Bone says some states you can get a DUI on a horse. Um, yeah, I mean, just generally, I can say like if you're facing a bully in anything in life, if it's outside of a courtroom, I can tell you just need to stand up to them. Most bullies they're um, they're really cowards and very insecure. So, I mean, if you want to look at how to act, just look at the how people handle themselves from Dr. Laposada to Dr. Russell to the ARC experts. Look how they handle themselves when they're getting browbeat and abused like they were. Design revenue sharing. O'Keefe sued all the bars too. I think I heard that. Don't know if that's true. Yeah, DJ Mom. I don't know if they ever did get inside Fairview, but that'd be interesting. I'm sure the crime scene, if it was there, would have been cleaned up really good. So they could try to go in there with the luminol and the other testing devices. I don't think they'd find anything because I mean, you're asking who killed John O'Keefe in your opinion. You know what? I'm not going to point the finger at anybody because I'm just going to wait to see what happens here. But I think I think something happened in the house or in the garage. So we don't know who was in what part of the garage to know what happened, but things are definitely suspicious with the garage in the house. Tuesday, June. Karen's probation can be assigned out of Canton, close to where she's currently living. Yeah, I don't know if they have the probation office even for Norfolk County there in Canton. It's probably, and she doesn't live in Canton, right? So she lives like 20, 30 minutes from there. So I'm sure it's not going to be too much of an inconvenience for her wherever it's at. She'll be happily doing it. And like I say, if you pay all the court costs and everything like that, I've seen it happen where people are off 1 year probation in like three months or so. I know one of the things a lot of states do is you got to have it go to a drug and alcohol counselor, and they got to do a write up on you and send it to the court. And you got to disclose to them what your drinking habits and stuff are, and then they look to see what kind of follow up treatment you need. So if there's any statement like she needs some kind of a treatment, then that would be something that would not allow her to get off probation within a year. Pebbles for a civil case, can't Karen bring in more evidence because the rules are different? Well, there's not constitutional requirements to a fair trial in a civil case, but I would think in a civil case, you're not going to have a prosecutor objecting you. A prosecutor works for the government, so I think you'd have probably better discovery. But who knows if this will even go to trial? I don't. Spending that long to try to get some money out of Karen Reed, spending over a month in trial. Jim Glethar, over a year ago, you advised against a retrial and said they would never get a homicide conviction. Yeah, and I got some heat from that. Some people that followed me on the channel said they're done with me. I'm an idiot. I'm a sellout. I periodically get those kind of comments. I've even heard of people attacking my wife, saying she put me up to this. I'm not really believing in Karen Reed's innocence and all kinds of trashy stuff like that. It's like, no. River Birch, do you feel the O'Keefe family listened to the evidence and realized Karen was innocent? I don't know. I know it can be hard. What did it say? It's easier to fool you than it is to convince you've been fooled. So I don't know. Learning curves. Oh my gosh. A lawyer that killed his client, the Cleveland case? I never heard of it. Cleveland, like that's where it happened, or is that the name? I'll write that down. Cleveland case. Design Rhythm. McAlbertson will never sleep soundly again today. Shirley A, you're asking should I show a video of the verdict today? I haven't done that tonight. I guess if you want me to, stand by a second. If anybody can shoot me that real quick before I find it. Okay, you're saying Patty S saying O'Keefe's made a statement on the news channel. Still think Karen's guilty. Oh, there you go. See, they're not going to listen to that. They're going to, and that's why prosecutors can get away with this kind of garbage. Stand by. Okay, let's see here. Okay, stand by. Okay, almost there. Yep. Stand by. Here we go.
Defendant remains standing. All other parties may be seated.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that 12 deliberating jurors and 6 alternates are present.
Yes.
May I inquire?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman, members of the jury, have you agreed upon a verdict?
Yes.
Thank you. May I see the papers? Mr. Foreman, have the verdicts been placed in this envelope and have they been in your presence ever since?
Answer is yes.
Mr. Foreman, on docket number 2282CR117001, murder in the second degree, what say you? Is the defendant at the bar guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
So say you, Mr. Foreman? So say you? No. Do you agree?
Yes.
Do all of you agree?
Yes.
Thank you. 002, what say you? Is the defendant at the bar not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
Of.
Is not guilty or guilty about that charge or any lesser included charge? Thank you.
They messed this.
Specifically number 5, operating under the influence of liquor by operating a motor vehicle with a blood alcohol level of 0.08 or greater. Correct?
Yes.
So say you, Mr. Foreman?
Guilty.
So say you all?
Yes.
003, what say is the defendant at the bar leaving the scene after accident resulting in death? Is the defendant not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
So say you, Mr. Foreman?
There it is.
So say you all? Jurors, hearken your verdict as the court records it. You upon your own.
Well, just that the dialogue between this guy reading this off and the foreman was not a good handoff there.
Say the defendant on 001 is not guilty, on 002 is guilty of operating under the influence of liquor, and 003 not guilty. Thank you.
You know, after they are deprived of their constitutional rights to support Karen Reed be closer to the courthouse, those illegal orders she had, basically banishing any Karen Reed supporters from being close to the courthouse. So that took weeks for the federal courts to intervene. The whole thing is, as I've said many times, is unconstitutional on so many different levels, so many different ways.
All right, jurors, everybody please be seated. Jurors, we thank you for your service. We're going to send you back. Your service is complete. I'd like to come back and talk to you a little bit afterwards. So thank you very much.
All rise.
Yeah, best forms even confusing for our own clerk. All right, so then there's also, I wanted to play, stand by. I wanted to play the interview with Karen's dad, William Reed. So stand by.
Elated grateful to God for this ending. It's been a long 3.5 years, long time coming. But while we've seen the worst in humanity over the last 3.5 years with the corruption, we've also seen the best in mankind, particularly the women. So many women out there, standouts at the courthouse over this week, in the hundreds. I know state police estimated there were about 3,000 people there today.
Great.
And so many women identify with Karen because at some point in their lives, you know, they have been objectified and dehumanized or victimized in some way or another. And with Karen, they see that strength and that courage to fight against the government that has, you know, unlimited resources. And so it's been a great win for us. We've got, you know, Karen's incredible fight, fortitude, strength, and willingness to persevere and not give in. And, you know,
Great,
she
Ken.
assembled a remarkable team of talented and passionate attorneys. David Yannetti was our first on board, then Alan Jackson and Liza Little from LA, and more recently, Bob Alessi. So we're just blessed to have this dream team of attorneys fighting for us. And I think a lot of that passion on their part, that expertise that was unshakable that they brought to the courtroom was because they knew Karen was factually innocent. And that was, we're very fortunate. I mean, other folks who may find themselves in the throes of law enforcement and be factually innocent themselves may not have that fortune or good blessing to have this type of attorneys and this part of, you know, this immensity of support out there. Again, just the people who have turned out in support for us is just very gratifying and heartwarming. And in a time in my life over the last 3 years, I've lost a lot of respect for what goes on in some of these communities. So I'll leave it at that.
How has it been? You talked about the struggles. I'm sure it's been a very tough time. It's 4 years that you and Karen and the family have been fighting. How has it been to fight the accusations, to have to fight that, despite knowing what you and the family felt was true and the defense team? How has that been for you and the family?
The accusations really didn't trouble us. I drove that Karen's vehicle home that day. It was parked right here when it was seized by Michael Proctor, the now fired and disgraced Michael Proctor of the Massachusetts State Police. I know the condition of that taillight, and I know that the injuries to John O'Keefe, including those dog bites, were not the result of Karen Reed's vehicle backing into him. I drove it home in that snowstorm. So when you've got that belief and assurance that, you know, your loved one is factually innocent, then you've got to fight with everything you've got to see this through to a just ending. And there have been times it's very, very difficult because law enforcement and the government has unlimited resources through their ability to tax people. And
did it feel so? Are you saying, did it feel to you like it was you against this entity that you guys were fighting, you and Karen and the family?
Well, there's no doubt about it. You know, the law enforcement has power, and it's difficult to put down that power. But I think so many folks saw this situation for what it was, a setup, a frame up, and push back. And when society pushes back and you get courageous men and women who are willing to take a stand, you know, a case in point would be Officer Nick Barrows, who was brought here on that Saturday and testified in court that the condition of that taillight was not as what was shown to him in court in the Sally Port of the Canton Police Department. So that's just one example. And, you know, you look at the Department of Justice was involved in this case from the early on. They were the ones who hired the ARCA scientists. And it was those scientists that determined the injuries to John O'Keefe were not the result of being struck by Karen Reed's vehicle, or that Karen Reed's vehicle,
Thanks.
the damage to it, all right, was the product of being struck by a 216-pound, 6'1" man. And yet, even with that type of strong, objective, independent evidence, and truly, they were hired by the Department of Defense, U.S. Attorney here in Massachusetts. They also provided us with the text of Michael Proctor. Without that, much of this might not have come to light.
Sure.
That's true.
I mean, the idea that he's been fired from the Massachusetts State Police, the lead detective on this case, fired for his conduct, his bias in this specific case. You know, that's something. That's remarkable. So there are some strong people out there, and some, all right, we're so, you know, grateful to them all. Prayers, all right, from so many.
What, in all these 4 years that you've been going through this ordeal, what has held your family together? Where has found? Obviously, Karen has had you as support, but how has the family come together? How hard has it been for the family?
Well, we're very mindful of our finite presence here on this earth. So, you know, we are churchgoers, we're Roman Catholics, we're believers in Jesus Christ, his mother, and we are dedicated followers of the church, and we pray daily. And if you don't have that, there's something, you know, that is very difficult then to come to grips with things. So we just continued to believe that God Almighty would see us through this. And he has, as you can see. I mean, this is a very glorious day for us in this family.
Overall, I know I spoke to your wife, Karen. How are you all feeling today after
Elated. I mean, for the last 3+ years, I've been in this house knowing the unlimited reach of the government. And always you hear a door shut, right? You hear a horn. You go to your window because you never know, all right, the next step they're apt to take. And so there's relief. It's finality to it all. And I thank so many hundreds of thousands of people who have come and said prayers for us, sent us texts, letters, flowers. Just so gratified. Again, I've seen the worst in mankind over the last 3.5 years, but I've seen the best in humanity.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure. Today, Karen said, and one of the things she said is that no one has fought harder for justice for John than she has. Would you be able to comment on that, on what she feels at and how she's been fighting for justice to find the real person?
Well, it's certainly not the task of this family, nor for Karen. I mean, for the idea that Karen fought back against these charges and fought vehemently and strongly, and we went into debt. She sold her house. She lost 2 jobs, Fidelity and at Bentley University, where she was an adjunct. Cashed out her 401. She fought to liberate herself, to free herself, and in so doing, freeing herself, essentially cast a light on, well, what happened then if it's not her? Don't forget, she's now been freed, all right? Even though the first trial, because the decision of the jury was not made public, twice she's been found not guilty of murder. And so, these jurors had been at it for hours in their deliberations and weeks listening to testimony. And so, it's when she says she's fought for John O'Keefe, she's fought for her own freedom and getting back her name. And in so doing, it's opened up the eyes of those in the media and just casual observers, why is she fighting so hard? She could take a plea, but she refused to ever take a plea for something she did not do.
Was there ever any doubt
Never.
in the families?
Never. Never. Karen would have been the first to say to me, and I was with her at that hospital in the morning, if she had done something wrong, she would have said, Dad, I'll take my medicine. Never. There's never been any doubt. Karen Reed is factually innocent. All right. She was found not guilty, but I will tell you, she's factually innocent. Look at the body. Look at the wounds or lack of wounds, aside from the abrasions, all right, from an animal, from a dog to his right arm, and to the deep laceration on the back of his head. Look at there's nothing else. There's no bruises, broken bones, torn ligaments. If he was struck by a 6,000-pound SUV, which my daughter was driving, you'd see something below the knees, in the torso,
Right.
around the chest. I mean, we're all reasonable people. Just look. Just look. You're out of Rhode Island, WJAR. You're former Rhode Island medical examiner, state medical examiner, Dr. Elizabeth LaPosada, I hope I'm saying that correctly, came and testified. And she said those injuries were not consistent with getting hit by a car. So, it's when you look at the physics, the science as provided by ACA, and then you look at the medical testimony and the medical evidence, whether it be from Dr. Elizabeth Posada or from the state of Massachusetts' own medical examiner, Dr. Scotty Bello. She said, all right, that she could not conclude that he wasn't hit by a car. In other words, it's possible. And the abrasions to the arm. And so much so, she could not conclude the manner of death. She could not conclude it was homicide. So, I mean, the evidence is overwhelming, compelling, but still it took us 3.5 years and 2 trials.
Yeah.
How, maybe last question for me, how is Karen feeling?
Elated.
What is the spirit? What is the spirit?
Elated. And also her attorneys. I mean, this was their fight too. I mean, the hours they put in, people see Bob Alessi or Alan Jackson doing a cross. That cross, all right, an order of proof has to be developed over several days. You just can't go in cold. You have to develop that. And same thing with the summation. Alan Jackson's summation, which so many people remarked on, all right, was just, so much on the point. I mean, hours. I know he went through multiple iterations. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
Does the family want, because I know Karen says she wants justice for John. Does the family want the case reopened to figure out what happened here?
We don't have that power to even, make that wish. We just don't. They have had the resources to look at this case over the last 3.5 years, given they knew the evidence from ACA, they knew the evidence from the medical experts, they knew the public, all right, was upset. Overwhelmingly, the public overwhelmingly upset about what was going on here. Well, they've always had the resources to look at it. So it's, what they choose to do, they'll do. And if they don't, it's now been 3.5 years. How much of that evidence has been destroyed? Who knows? So,
Would it be something that she would advocate for?
we just want our lives back. She's got her life back. She's, as she made a statement outside of the court today, I don't know if you were out there. It was incredible, wasn't it? By her fighting for her freedom, fighting for her factual innocence through multiple hearings over the last 3.5 years, 2 trials. That was her, if you will, her statement that not only am I factually innocent and I am being wrongfully accused and charged here, but other eyes need to be brought on this to look at this. So
Last question, I'll let you go because I know you guys covered a lot already. Getting her life back, what does that even look like now?
I don't think our lives will ever be the same. I mean, this case started off, it was once a time we had trouble generating media interest in this. And now, it's become a national, if not international sensation. And why? Why? Is it because there's a Hollywood attorney involved? A relatively young, successful woman? No, it's because of, all of the dynamics associated with that. What happened? A cop lost his life, found on the lawn of another cop. And you've seen much of the testimony, and then alleged cover-up, corruption, has all of the facets for something that's so intriguing as well as alarming. So, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, he's a PhD, and I think he's also a CPA, and he was the dean of the Bentley Business School. So very sharp guy, super brilliant. Yeah, can you imagine how exhausted they are? Golly, this case has been exhausting for us here. So imagine the Reeds. I can't imagine that. I think he's like 77, so he's tough. Super smart, high character guy. It's so thrilling to see them relieved that this nightmare and horror is over. Yeah, can you imagine all the dads in America were like this guy? Yeah, just think about him and Janet had to drive like 40 minutes, I think, each way every day of trial. They put on a lot of miles going to and from that ridiculous courthouse there. Yeah, River Birch, he's so well spoken because he's telling the truth. Think about how everyone on the Commonwealth side was so careful how they answered every question. Jane Ferguson, yeah. We all can sleep better. Let me check one thing here. Yeah, I think you all see how I've been saying that for years now. People have no idea how political the criminal justice system is, but this one is way beyond anything I've ever seen. Yeah, I saw Yannetti. He was also crying there in the court once it sunk in that they basically won the case across the board. And hold on a second. This has consumed their lives for the last 3.5 years. Crypto Catherine, you're saying Karen's hands were shaking when she dried her eyes after the verdict was read. It made me cry even more. Oh, I didn't see him pick up a Leslie in celebration. Hold on a second. Maybe I'll try to pull up the sentencing. Stand by. Yeah, anyway. Well, it's getting late, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. But thanks, everybody, for your wonderful support of this case, the justice cause for Karen Reed and her family. It's there's different chants going on outside there by the massive crowds. I guess what they say, 3,000, and one of them was getting rid of Canoni. And I forget what the others were. Thanks for Food is Love for being a mod on this. Thanks for all your dedication, all your late nights supporting us. Thanks, everybody. You guys have been great. Thanks you for your professionalism, class, dignity, and respect. Yeah, I'll be back on. I don't know how soon, but maybe I'll be covering the Adelson case still in a couple days. I don't know. So we'll see what happens. So be safe wherever you're at. And we'll be playing this through our minds for a while here now, won't we? This is trying to unwind from this. It's going to take days. Gregory Moore case. All right. All right, y'all be safe. Thanks for everything and appreciate y'all. And we'll see you back soon. Thanks to the community here for justice. Good night.